I've worked for software companies, I've worked for clearing houses, I've worked for investment banks, I've worked in operations, I've worked in sales, I've worked in management. So a pretty broad spread of stuff. Ended up running the global futures business at UBS for a while. And at that point, it actually became the biggest futures business in the world. Subsequently been massacred and destroyed, but that was nothing to do with me. And a few other things. And a couple of years ago, I decided I didn't want to work for banks anymore, and because there is more to life than work. So I set up my own consulting company, and that's where I am. Probably the best thing that I did in all those years was set up the charity that's been mentioned, Futures for Kids. So this was 2008. A group of us got together and decided that it would be a good idea to found an industry and raise money that just through doing a few fun things, that we would not, because we all had full-time jobs, that we would actually just raise money and give that to children's charities. And we've been doing that since 2008. We've funded more than 40 charities now. And we've actually raised more than £2 million over the last 6 years. So it's been pretty successful. We do it, as John said, through a number of events. We mentioned the dinner. We do a walk to work each year, which is anything from 50 miles in from sort of 4 different sections through to various other fun things, poker nights, quiz nights, golf days, usual sort of stuff, but things that we can do which will allow us to raise money without spending too much time. And then we hand that over to other charities to manage and to use. So the 40 charities that we've focused on are really, as the name suggests, Futures for Kids, are really focused on providing a future for children who mostly won't have an opportunity to do it. And we've supported many in the UK, in London, but we also support charities in Africa, in Nepal, in Brazil. And it's really been focused on providing education opportunities and that type of thing. So anything that provides a future and helps people to move forward. And a lot of that, for example, in Kenya, we went to, in Nairobi, there's a whole bunch of street gangs, all in the slums of Nairobi, about 2 million people living. And because of all the AIDS and the huge amount of children that become orphans, there is no support mechanism for them. So they basically create gangs themselves. And normally that is, and has been associated with being a very bad thing. And they turn to violence and drugs and the usual thing you'd expect in gangs. And one of the projects just takes a lot of those children off those streets and turns them into associations where they work together as the same team and work and create their own rules and change the whole approach to the way they live. So fascinating sort of things that we've been able to do. As I said, very successful. And we've really been able to support charities which find it incredibly difficult to raise money. So many people have asked me why I decided to set up Futures for Kids. And my first answer is usually because it seemed like a good idea at the time, and had I known how much work it was going to take and effort, I'm not sure I would have made the same decision. But I think the real reason is because I could. I think I was in a very fortunate position in 2008. I was, as I said, head of UBS Futures business, and at that time it was the biggest futures business in the world. And I knew that I had access to anybody pretty much in the futures industry because of the job that I did. So whether it was someone like Steve, who's the managing director of trading technologies, or the head of the CME, or whoever it was, I knew I could put in a call and actually they would listen to me about Futures for Kids rather than about what I was selling at the time. So it was a real opportunity to do that. And when I talked to a bunch of friends about it, they all thought it was a great idea. And so that's what we did. But primarily it is about giving something back. I think anybody who works in this industry or has worked for the last 20 odd years and has been successful lives a life which clearly most people in the world don't live. I was actually born in Kenya and spent all my childhood living abroad in places where, poverty is sort of the norm, and I'm very conscious of the fact that the life that we live here in this country, and particularly if you've been lucky enough to be reasonably successful, is not the life that most of the people live around the world. So I think what amazed me more than anything really was, apart from the fact that we've been able to help so many children and help so many charities and raise so much money, was the sort of side aspects, what I call the unintended consequences. And to me, it's really been one of the best things that's ever happened to me. I've been lucky enough to visit some of the projects that we support, South Africa and Zambia and Kenya. And you go to some of these places and you can see in that some of those pictures, the poverty is just unimaginable. It really is extraordinary. It's people living on less than $1 a day, and so the next meal is really all they think about. And so to be able to, for example, build a school as we did that gets hundreds of children in every day that weren't going to school otherwise or were in makeshift classes, and that can last for generations on. It's a fantastic thing to see, and to see the change that happens with, say, these street children when they come off the streets and actually turn into what I'd call normal in our world, ambitious children who really want to get away from that life and move into a much better way of living. It's an incredibly impressive thing. I met some very interesting people, and I think I can honestly say I've met more people as a result of being involved with Futures for Kids than I ever did in my career. And that might sound like a really strange thing to say, but you spend so much of your time stuck behind a desk in a job, particularly if you work in a bank, that whilst you might be out there selling a bit, there's no doubt that it's far more interesting talking to people about Futures for Kids than it is about the futures business, for example. Well, it has been. You'll notice there that Prince Charles, he's the one on the left, in case you can't tell the difference. And in spite of what people say, he's not my father, because it's, although that would have been an unintended consequence, it was quite interesting. No, I've had fantastic opportunities and meeting some of the people who run the charities that we support. I'm just in awe of those people who really do dedicate their lives to doing things, whereas what we do is, they're helping people. What we're doing is just raising the money and having fun doing it. But these people are really quite astonishing. And many unique experiences. I'm not sure I'd ever have got to number 10 Downing Street if I hadn't started Futures for Kids. And that may not be the be-all and end-all of life, but it's a very interesting thing to be able to do. I sat next to the Lord Mayor in the Lord Mayor show, which is not something I ever would have done, and it may not be the highlight of my life, but it was pretty good fun. And there's been just loads of those experiences and meetings and said to go along with witnessing the changes that have been made to so many children. So, but I think probably one of the things I'm, if you like, most proud about is actually seeing an entire industry get behind the charity. And I have to say, it's thanks to many people, but people like John, who's been incredibly supportive of Futures for Kids and helping push our events and make supportive comments in his newsletter. But we've had an incredible reaction to it in the press, but generally, and I think we've had a lot of fun doing it, which is I think a really excellent side effect. So that's a bit about Futures for Kids. I thought I would leave you with a few things to shape your working life. My own little bit of advice. And it's a very common theme that you'll hear all the time. And people often say, do something you love. And it's really, really hard to find something that you love. Most people don't wake up and say, or as lucky as saying, well, I always wanted to be a doctor, or I always wanted to be a lawyer. It just doesn't mostly happen like that. But you'll know pretty quickly if you don't really enjoy what you're doing, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. So really, if you're not doing it, don't think you have to stay in the same job forever. You really don't. This is a very different world than it was 30 years ago. it's much easier to move, and you should take risks. To Patrick's point, you could be much happier doing other things if you're really hating it. I think whatever you do end up doing, my advice is find something in it that you could be the best at. You look around this group, there's a big group, you're all competing with each other in some shape or form because you may all work in the same organizations, or the pyramid eventually gets to be a small peak. So to differentiate yourself from other people, I think you really need to just find one thing that you can be the go-to person for. And you need to work at it. Nothing comes for free. You do need to work hard. I think networks are key. As I said, I have met more people through Futures of Kids than I have through business, and it's probably one of the regrets that I didn't spend more time networking. It's incredibly important, and it's mainly because people like to deal with other people that they know, that they like. So the more people you know, and hopefully they'll like you, the better off you'll be. But it's also just more interesting. There are some really interesting people out there. Some really boring ones, aren't there, Steve? But there are some really interesting people out there. Take ownership. One of the worst things I ever come across is people who sit there and just say, we should do something about this. Just do it yourself. It's simple. If you're sitting in a meeting and there's an action out there, just grab it. It's what gets you noticed, and it makes your boss look good as well, which is all important. A softer one, treat people the way you'd like to be treated. I think it's just a truism. I've come across so many arses in this world who you just can't imagine would expect to be treated in the same way that they're treating people. So if you treat people the way that you expect to be treated, you'll always get on fine. I really do think all work and no play makes you very dull. It's just so true. So just make time to do something outside work. And it really does take an effort, because once you get embroiled in a job and you're working 12, 15 hours a day or something, it becomes hard to do. So you just have to make it a priority. And whatever it is, book it in and just go for it. Try and do something each year to improve yourself. I think, again, it's a really hard thing to do, and it doesn't need to be work-related, but I just think there is so much to do in life that you could do, and improve yourself might be a strong word, but go to that travel destination that you wanted to, or do something that really inspires you, and just do it once a year if that's all you have, if you don't have time. I think one of the things that's been mentioned about taking risks, I absolutely agree with that. Embrace and encourage change. All through my career, the one thing I would say above all is so many good things happen through change, and so many people are afraid of it. So many people will sit there going, we're all going to die because everything's changing. And for the vast majority of the time, it really isn't like that. Really good things happen through change. And the final one, there are 3 things normally on your business card as you become more and more important, as I'm sure you all will, as bright young things. Your name, your title, and your company. I think really, really only your name should matter. People should want to deal with you for who you are, not what you are. There you go.